Hi, my name is Bonnie Moya, and I'll be talking about the social penetration theory. Now, before we dive in, I kind of want to help paint a picture so you can truly understand how this theory really works. Imagine an onion creating layers, and now depending on how many layers is depending how big the onion actually is. This was actually initiated by Altman and Taylor. This is how they were able to explain how social penetration really occurred. In fact, it's really amazing. They were considered some of the innovative and tireless leaders in the field of psychology. In fact, when they started to initiate this theory, they began to realize that it wasn't just about psychology. It was also about communication. In fact, interpersonal communication. Because it's not just us truly understanding our behaviors and our emotions and the reason why we actually communicate with one another, but it was actually more of an interpersonal thing that was actually created, a relationship, an intimacy. And it was basically kind of something where you say, into me you see. And that's really a really cool term to kind of look at it. Another thing that was actually really amazing is that they begin to see that there's actual cost and rewards in this particular theory. Now, the cost and rewards, what that consists of is basically, if I want to get into a relationship, I'm going to kind of factor in what's the cost. Is it going to cost me something? Am I going to lose something? And that's basically what it's particularly boiled down to. Or is there a reward? Am I going to gain a valued relationship, a valued friendship, or a variety of different things in that interpersonal relationship as I continue to invest in this person? Now, this can happen over the different layers, and we'll get more to that soon. One of the biggest things that we talk about a lot is self-disclosure. Now, in order to create and actually invite people into our lives is basically self-disclosure. We actually have to share ourselves. It's not always going to be a surface relationship, like when we talk about surface situations. Now, there's different layers, and we're going to talk about that. The different layers are superficial layers, middle layers, inner layers, and core personality. Now that's really cool. Those are the three main type of layers of an individual. And to break those down, we're going to kind of dive into those so we can see what those look like. Superficial layers are basically shallow information, kind of something where you talk about the likes and dislikes of music, the likes and dislikes of food, kind of a surface, nothing in-depth conversation, just something you would share with a stranger. Middle layer is all about your political point of view and your social attitude towards things in life in general. Things that you start telling people how you really feel about things. Like, this is what I really feel about this and that, right? So that's really what it's about. You start expressing maybe your political point of views of how you think things are going in the political realm. The inner layer actually has quite a few things, and this is as we get closer, we're diving into an individual. This is the more and more you share, and it's heading towards the core of yourself. So the inner layer is more about your spiritual values, your deep fears, your hopes, your goals, your fantasies, and your secrets. This is usually kind of something maybe you share with your BFF, somebody who you truly admire, maybe your mentor, maybe even a counselor. And this is something that's more of an intimate because you have that trust value. You feel like there's a reward in that relationship. So you decide to start sharing more and more of yourself. As we all talked about in the onion, as we had that vivid imagine in our imagination, we started thinking about that core, that middle center part of the onion. There's a little piece that's kind of all together. That's the core personality that reflects on us, the inner part of ourselves. And that's the private information. Now, a lot of times we don't share that. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. But that's very rare, very few in the people who we actually share those very things with other people. Now, the literature review, one thing really amazing about the different resources and references that I was able to find and obtain was the fact that many of those reviews started talking about the self-disclosure. In fact, that was kind of the key element across the board, the commonality of all the different references. And that was pretty amazing because a lot of this was basically the only way we can allow people into the different layers of who we are is basically expressing who we are, showing the very things that are within us. The more we share, the more into me they see, right? And then vice versa. But this only tends to occur when both parties or if whoever you're sharing also shares back. And so that was something that was actually something that not many people will do. They won't disclose themselves just because they feel like it, just because it just is. Now, those are rare, few in between. But an actual relationship, an interpersonal communication that occurs is when two people, or even within the group, if you're in a small group, they each share something personal, something close in. The more that the individual shares, the more the everybody else shares. So for instance, I'm in a small group. If I share a testimony, something in depth, something that's personal, deep, something how it really hurt me and it was really hard to express, really hard to overcome, but this is how I did overcome. Then the other people in your group are most likely to also express that deep hurt because they felt that they felt that it was safe. And that's the other thing. The environment has to be safe. They have to feel secure. They have to feel as though that they're able to share these things and not feel judged, or less likely to feel that they would be judged in this environment. Now let's talk about the strengths and weaknesses. One thing amazing about the strengths and weaknesses is that in the strength, there's a lot of strength in this if we truly understand how relationships occur, how we can build these amazing interpersonal relationships, or maybe we don't understand why we can't build those relationships. The onion, the picture of the onion, the layers, the levels in which it truly expresses the in-depth of who we are. It really shows why, or the type of friendships that we actually have. It shows where we have gone to, where we have been able to truly express ourselves. If all we do is express surface level type information, and that's all that we express, and that's kind of the friendships and kind of sometimes the many people who we attract. So the strength of this theory is basically truly expressing how it truly works, how an individual truly acts based off their behaviors, and we can kind of see the reflection in our friendships. So if we look at who our friends are, we can kind of see if they're all nothing but surface, and we've never shared anything personal with them, or they've never really shared anything personal with us, then we kind of know the type of friendships that we have in our lives, and that could be good or bad. So this theory really helps explains who we are. As for the weaknesses, now this is something not as good. The weakness about this particular theory is that it doesn't express truly to help you self-assess or self-reflect who you are. Online versus face-to-face. Now this was actually pretty amazing. Now since this theory was initiated back in 1973, as we looked at so many other theories in communication, a lot of these theories were created a lot of years ago, in fact decades ago. And this is kind of hard to see, how can this theory even be relevant? It's back in 1973, I mean it's over 30 years. But this is what's really awesome. It actually built a foundation of what it's all about. So to see that this actual theory was created for us to see face to face, to truly understand how relationships are built face to face. Now, how can it work for us if we were online? Well, it can work, and we have to kind of change the concepts and the different levels of measurement of how this truly works, how the measurements of our relationship actually are created online. And that's how these true studies come about. There's actual studies that actually come about that show that we can create interpersonal relationships, create a true communication online with the different aspects. Now, it may be different because people may feel there's a bias, that there's no face-to-face communication, but it can occur online. Biblical context. Now, this is really awesome. I kind of want to sum it up and really show you how this theory truly puts it into play. Now, God says in Mark 12:31, he says, love your neighbor as you love yourself. And I think that's one thing really important, that in order for us to love our neighbors as we love ourselves, we truly have to love ourselves first. And that's a true reflection. And I think that this theory really truly helps us kind of self-evaluate ourselves, our friendships, our relationships, and kind of really look at this theory and kind of apply it to ourselves first before we go try to apply it anywhere else. And the only way we can love other people more is truly to love ourselves more. So that's why I love this theory, because it really helps us kind of help us kind of truly evaluate how we're supposed to have relationships with other people. The last one I really want to kind of come across is James 4:8a, and it says, draw near to God as God will draw near to you. Now ultimately, at the end of the day, right, we're to love God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our mind. But if we can't understand the love that we can receive from God, then it'll be only a one way. And see, the only way that a true self-disclosure can occur is when two are interacting, when God expresses and discloses all the amazing things which he already has in the Word of God. But when I spend time with him, I disclose myself, I self-disclose myself back unto him. And that's why this true theory really truly explains how we should and shouldn't be.
Thank you for watching.